Hi all, welcome to BRR Knowledge Center. And in this today's session, we'll look at Azure SQL Managed Instance. Basically, this is similar to an SQL Server instance, but it has some special features. So where we can adopt on the Azure and we can utilize for application integration. So basically, this Azure provides three kind of SQL, features like SQL databases and SQL managed instance and SQL virtual machines. So basically, SQL virtual machines is nothing but an virtual machines where you can create a virtual machine and install 100% of SQL server there and use it for applications. And when it comes to SQL server or SQL managed instance, it is a kind of SQL server instance which is creating an Azure, which does not have any infrastructure. It is similar to a PaaS service. So if we can look at the diagram here, and if you wanted to talk about this Azure SQL managed instance, here SQL managed instance was a PaaS service and SQL databases was PaaS services. Both are PaaS services. So as I mentioned, there is another kind of feature in the Azure SQL called Azure SQL Virtual Machines or Azure SQL Server. That is infrastructure as a service, but these two are platform as a services. So this Azure SQL managed instance fully managed a PaaS service, and it built on the same PaaS service infrastructure, and it has all PaaS features. And when it comes to Azure SQL databases, it's also a PaaS service, but full isolation and security, native VNet implementation, private addresses it has. So it is separately having a virtual network implementation natively, and it has private IP addresses. When it comes to Azure SQL managed instance, we have private endpoints and public endpoints. So that way you can expose your SQL managed instance to remote users where they can use public endpoint and they can connect to your SQL managed instance. So if you can look at the in detail of this Azure SQL managed instance. So this is something about Azure SQL. So where it provides Azure SQL databases and Azure SQL managed instance and Azure SQL virtual machines on Azure. So this Azure SQL database is basically using it for modern cloud applications and best for most migrations to the cloud, and lift and shift is ready. That means if you wanted to migrate to a cloud and you wanted to use SQL databases on the cloud environment other than on premises, so then it is best for the applications where they wanted to migrate to the cloud environment. And when it comes to SQL managed instance, this is for modernizing existing applications. So that means if you wanted to provide a security for the users to connect to the SQL instance, and if you wanted to hide the some of the SQL features or other databases in the same instance, and this is best for modernizing existing applications which are already using SQL Server. That means if you're already using an application with SQL Server database, and if you wanted to modernize the application to providing some kind of features to your existing app and as part of SQL Server instance settings, and this is your Azure SQL managed instance was very good for that. And third one is Azure SQL virtual machines. That is nothing but a kind of virtual machine where you can create a virtual machine and can install your SQL Server and you use it. So this is best for lift and shift of workload requiring 100% SQL Server compatibility and OS level access. So this first one is a PaaS service. This is PaaS service, and the second one also a PaaS, and this is third one is IaaS. This is infrastructure as a service. That means you are creating a virtual machine, means you are creating a resource where you use the resource and platform, but not a platform. That means you are specifying the RAM size and memory size and kind of virtual cores and all this stuff you are mentioning it while creating a virtual machine. That means you are asking for infrastructure to utilize on the cloud. That means it's infrastructure as a service. But when it comes to these two, you are going to use the existing kind of platform where you use it SQL Server for the applications and manage connecting to the SQL Server and you move to a cloud environment kind of stuff. And when it comes to SQL managed instance, this is what our main topic here in today's session. If you can look at as a SQL managed instance, so it is already I told you it is for modernizing your applications, and it is a kind of scalability and reliability availability. So it's similar to our SQL server and SQL databases on Azure. So the beauty of this Azure SQL managed instance was so it is completely on Azure. It doesn't have any physical source there, and you have to specify the backup on restore and replication, everything via storage accounts, but not physical stuff, right? So as I mentioned, this is fully having the PaaS features. So Azure SQL managed instance has all PaaS features. So what are all PaaS features we have? If you can tell about PaaS features or multi-tenant. So we have a multi-tenant architecture in this PaaS, and so we have unlimited database customization, unlimited DB customization, and so a robust workflow engine. So that you will always have availability of your SQL instance. So robust workflow engine, or you can say capabilities, and flexible integration model. This is services enabled, flexible service enabled integration model. So these are some of the past features. So these are the fast features on Azure cloud. All these features are applicable to your Azure SQL managed instance. Okay, so this is basically designed to provide a near perfect compatibility with the latest SQL server. That means it's automatically having a latest version of SQL Server Enterprise Edition, and that is going to be installed when you create a Azure SQL managed instance. And that engine is going to useful for you to operate on-premises databases as well. So whatever database engine you are using it as part of SQL Server with the latest version, same thing is going to be uh, mapped to this, Azure SQL managed instance. Okay. So using managed instance, you can lift and shift on premises SQL Server and applications to Azure with minimal changes. Okay. So when coming to the Azure SQL managed instance, if you look at Azure, where go to the home, and if you click on Azure SQL, so you will see three kind of stuff here: SQL databases and SQL managed instances and SQL virtual machines. And as I told you, this and this are a kind of PaaS services, and this is infrastructure as service, and this is what we are talking about. And with this, so we are going to create the SQL managed instance, and that instance we are going to connect from outside of your uh, on-premises or cloud, and you can directly access that using public endpoint. So the managed instance for SQL database provides several features. So as I have already mentioned here, one is supporting fully PaaS features, and also it supports linked servers where enable you to operate distributed databases. That means you can replica the one of the database to your Azure SQL managed instance, and that way it is linking to your original servers. And also it provides service broker where they provide the native support for messaging and queuing of your data. And another thing was database mail that enables you to send the emails from your database. So only thing was with this SQL managed instance was uh, when you're creating, it is going to take kind of some time, like almost 4 to 5 hours. Its provisioning time is another challenge when you are likely encounter when you start creating this Azure SQL managed instance, and this can be problematic if you need to create a new instance on short order. So, and other than that, it is very good in using of managed instance to provide a secure connections to the end user. And using this, so we simply lift and shift on-premises SQL Server and applications to Azure with the minimal changes. So this enables you to access cloud scalability and availability while eliminating the responsibilities of on-premises infrastructure maintenance and updating and backup of your database. So when you create a Azure SQL managed instance, so it is going to take care of everything by Azure, so that no need of worrying on SQL version and also backup and kind of updating stuff. And even maintenance of this SQL managed instance is also taken care of by the Azure. So only thing what you need to do was the data what you are keeping in the Azure SQL managed instance was uh, must be a replica, or you link to one of the servers so that it will automatically distribute that original data to the server, and this server is going to be using it for what kind of purpose you want it, like reporting or making of dashboards or some other benefits for the end users. So this is fully secured. Whatever data you are keeping and the connection coming through this SQL managed instance was fully secured, because it encrypts Azure SQL managed instance data files known as encrypting data at rest using transparent data encryption. This transparent data encryption performs real-time encryption and decryption of the data and log files of your SQL managed instance. The encryption uses a database encryption key, which is stored in the database both record of availability during recovery. You can protect all your database in the managed instance with transparent data encryption. That's what the thing of this SQL managed instance. No worrying of this thing. And also, if you wanted to enable MFA, that is the secondary level of authentication. So security, basically, when you're talking about security, it is fully secured, where it is going to use TD. This is what we talk about transparent data encryption. This is going to encrypt all your data and the log files. And also, yeah, and also it has secured connections with certifications, and client must connect to this server using trusted certifications. And another was we can enable MFA when connecting from SMS. So that way you have a secondary level authentication to your instance, and it has got full secure. So this is all about Azure SQL managed instance. This is basically using it for providing more security to your instance on the databases on that same instance. And also it is very easy to lift and shift, and you can modernize your applications by applying all the security stuff. And also you can hide or you can give permissions to your any specific database objects or databases in the same instance to the end user by just providing uh, SQL Server authentication with universal MFA and SQL Server authentication with Active Directory. So that is one of the beauty here. We can use more security was we can use Active Directory of Azure users and can connect from AD. So if you have any user registered an Azure account and that user can be made as an admin to the admin to this as Azure SQL managed instance and connect from that Outlook login so that it will have more security and you will have all the features what we have when you log into your Azure portal using Outlook login from the Active Directory. So, and second thing was you can enable MFA because it is connected to Active Directory, and you can enable MFA, and it can ask you OTP or confirmation, which has mapped to your Outlook login, and that way it is more secure rather than connecting just giving a username and password to the SQL instance. So these are about kind of Azure SQL managed instance. And we'll see the practical stuff like how we are going to create Azure SQL managed instance on Azure in the next sessions. Thanks for listening to this video. Please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.